Would like to call order for the Select Board meeting of February 26, 2024, pursuant to Executive Session, Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21. We will be going into executive session. Need a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Second, and a vote.
Yes.
We can vote. Mr. Mickelson?
Yes.
Why are we going into executive session?
Yes.
Why are we going into executive
I'm
session?
going to read it right after.
Okay.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mrs. Brooks?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. We will be addressing the following issues. Solar Cannabis Company, HCA, Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21. To discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body and the chair so declares. And secondly, we'll be discussing the Harbor Master contract according to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel. And we will be approving executive session minutes from January 29, 2024, and February 5th, 2024. Thank you, Mr. McDonald, for your assistance. We'll be going into executive session and be back as close to 6:30 as possible. Thank you very much. To order the Select Board meeting of February 26, 2024. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing while we honor our veterans, both past and present, here and abroad. Thank you very much. Please be seated. This is an open meeting. It's held here in room 304. The meeting is being recorded. We have 4 members present and 1 member absent, so our votes will be done in unison as opposed to on roll call. We have signed the warrant, and we are ready to go. First on the list, we have 3 appointments. This is going to be a hearing for Spike Speed Shop, new Class 2 motor agent license. Someone here from Spikes? Please step forward. I got to make sure I follow the rules. Okay. Hi.
Hi, how are you today?
This is could state your name and it's a little information on you, please.
George LaGrace. I'm the owner of Spike Speed Shop, Inc.
Okay. This is an open hearing. We're going to call the open hearing in session. Do we need a motion for that?
No, just open the hearing.
Okay. Motion is a hearing. We're here to hear the story opening, and then we want to address people in the audience who may be in favor or not in favor of your project. So at this point, tell us anything you want to know and how much of it, please.
We basically restore vintage vehicles and build custom cars. We also participate in vintage vehicle sales, which is the reason for the application.
Mm-hmm. Location?
640 State Road, Dartmouth.
What's there now? Give us an idea where it is so people will listen.
Right behind the plaza of Dartmouth Building Supplies on the left, Fiesta is on the right, and there's a little easement that goes down, and the old ambulance company.
So it'll be in the back of DBS?
Yes, sir.
And the restaurants there, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you build custom cars?
I do.
It'd be interesting to see that.
You do your pickup trucks over again?
No.
Do we have a ride?
No. No.
Absolutely.
No, I mean, I've always been intrigued by the guys that do custom cars.
Yeah.
Can dig.
Quite a neck.
Those guys. Foose.
I just met with Chip back in November out at SEMA.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, he's got a very warped mind, but it comes out beautiful in cars.
We're a proud but few bunch.
Yeah, definitely.
Is that what it takes?
Oh, yeah. Oh no. Some of the cars that they do is just absolutely
I
fantastic.
never knew the depth of your knowledge of this subject.
Oh no.
Mr. Donald.
Well, that's what
Amazing.
That's what the boob tube does.
Okay. Anything else you want to say? Any questions from the board first?
I don't have any.
Okay. This is a hearing, so at this point, we want to address anybody in the audience who is in favor of the project. Please step forward. We doing okay so far? Okay.
If you want to say something, you can. I'm just in favor, okay.
Okay.
We hope so.
At this point, hearing none, we're going to move on. Anybody who is not in favor of the project, please step forward. Okay. We can move on to any further questions by the board. We're done. We're going to close that hearing. We're going to move on. Any discussion from the board?
To approve.
Motion to approve.
To approve.
Second.
A second. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? I hear none. It's 4-0. Congratulations.
Great luck.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Maybe we'll stop by and take a peek.
You're all welcome anytime. We're
Great,
happy
thank
to be
you.
here.
Thank you.
Where do they get a haircut like that? I don't have enough.
I mean, it kind of
Enjoy
fits.
it while I have it.
It kind of fits the business.
Hey, it's good. No images
It's all
there.
about marketing.
Okay. Thank you very much. Next hearing is Eversource to install 4 new JO poles on Allen Street. Someone here from Eversource?
Yes.
There's a familiar face.
Is this still around?
Please introduce yourself and give us, we're going to take these separately? Okay.
Jessica Elder, representing Eversource. Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for having me, members of the board. So this project, this is one of our big reliability projects, and it is 4 poles being installed on Allen Street. So this job is to address old wire along the way, and these the new wire that's going in is going to be a little heavier to support, so we'll need some support poles. These 4 poles are mid-span poles. There's going to be a lot of replacement of poles as well going along. We're going to be starting down on Allen Street. Actually, we're going to be going all along these, but these 4 poles that we're proposing, the first one is going down near Ann Ave, Slocum Road, down in that area. We'll be going all the way up to Rockdale Ave. And as I said, this is a reliability project doing, and there was something else that I wanted to tell you. I think I covered the just support poles or replacing other, but this is one of the projects to bring that capacity into the South Dartmouth area. That's necessary. We will be requesting a detail because there's going to be a lot of work going down along that area up Allen, and I couldn't tell you how long the project's going to take though.
Dave?
Any questions of the board? Mrs. Brooks?
I have a question. When you say support poles, will you be taking out the old one and putting in a
No, these
larger,
are
bigger
going in
one?
between other poles. We're replacing some poles, but these are mid-span poles.
Okay.
So there
So
are
not a double pole?
No.
But a new pole
it's a new
in
pole.
the mid-span of existing poles?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Any other questions?
Is it because the wires are that heavy?
Well, the newer wires compared to, and I'm not sure how long these wires, but I know that there's, they're really trying to upgrade the system for system reliability. These newer wires do tend to be a little bit heavier. With all the technology we have, everybody has cell phones and laptops and tablets and all that coming in. So, yeah, they are the wires are a little bit heavier.
Okay, this is a public hearing. At this point, we're going to address the public. Anybody here who is in favor of this project want to step forward? Okay, having here none. Anybody here in favor, not in favor of the project, also want to step forward? Now's the time to speak. Okay, hearing none, we're going to close this hearing, and we're going to ask board members any.
I do have some questions.
Go right ahead.
Knowing that the cable is thicker, any of the, I noticed that this is basically an Allen Street project from Tucker all the way to Brownell, where the town line goes.
Correct.
There's some areas where there are double poles. What is the time frame Eversource has given the others who are on the poles to move their lines to the new poles that were replaced? Because we know Eversource is the top line, then there's Verizon, then there's Comcast, and possibly the fire departments, as the fire department, I believe that's District 3, to move their lines to the new poles so that you guys can remove the old poles.
The old poles.
Right.
We can only request, which we many times put in requests to have these other utility companies remove their wires and,
Right,
we can
and I
only-
know it's not you, trust me, it's not you, but I know we had asked Eversource how many double poles there were in the town, and for some reason, we got a 0 answer, which I found pretty much laughable, because I just drove from Tucker Road to Allen Street and found 20. So,
I'm not sure who you spoke
yeah.
with.
well,
Maybe they just
it
directed you
was
to the wrong.
His name is Anthony or something?
Anthony
Yeah.
Ballou is working on the double pole.
Right, he's
locations
working
for
on it,
us.
as we requested at the last meeting.
Okay.
An inventory. My next question is to Mr. Carrero. Did we get the check?
The check was cut and mailed. I don't know if we've received it yet. but
Okay,
I-
so it's been cut and, okay.
Yes, I'm confident that it will be here. We may have received it, I'm not sure yet.
Okay, all right, because my vote was contingent upon payment of that, so
They've assured us.
they've assured us? Okay, all right. Just please notify me that, I will vote for this, because it's been on the docket for a while, and it was upheld because we were waiting for Eversource to pay for damages on Hemlock Street, so which they supposedly.
It's not my
I know that's you,
department.
it's not you, and I know it's not you, so.
Okay.
This is just unfortunately the company you work for, so, and represent. So,
You inherited it.
okay.
Any other comments from the board? Are we ready to vote?
Motion.
Well, no, we
We
need
need
a
a motion.
Right.
We're ready to have motion, okay.
I'll let Sean do it.
You gonna let me do it? Okay. Because I'm nice and I've been told that the check is in the mail, I'll make a motion to approve this request.
Do we have a second?
Nice. Thank you.
Any discussion on this motion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? I hear none, motion passes. Next, don't go anywhere. Eversource to install 2 new JO poles on Division Road.
Okay, so this project is part of a large interconnection project with one of our DG companies. Most of it would be going underground. In this portion of the project, we are requested by the customer to install 2 new poles along Division Road. These poles will be owned by both Verizon and Eversource. We will request a detail, and this project shouldn't take as long. I would say within about a week, and pretty straightforward with the 2 poles on Division Road.
Okay. Before we open the hearing, any questions from the board? Okay, once again, this is a public hearing. Anyone here who is in favor of this project, please step forward. Having heard none, anyone here who is against this project, also please step forward. Hearing none, this hearing is now closed. Any other questions or discussion from the members? Are we ready to vote? I need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Any comments or questions on the motion? Let's vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? I hear none. That motion passes. Thank you very much for
Thank
coming.
you so much. Have a good evening.
Projects. You do the same. We're going to move. I didn't sign it yet.
Oh, okay.
Set it down. Next, new business. The mixtape one-day event, 443 Old Fall River Road. Please step forward, state your name and your whole details on the project.
Hi, my name is Mike O'Connell from Brockhard Racing and New England Events. And the mixtape is a mixed terrain cycling event, mostly off-road. We've been putting it on since 2017, but this would be the first time it would start and finish in Dartmouth as opposed to in Lakeville. I used to own a bike shop in Lakeville. We used to run it from Ted Williams Camp. We found that starting and finishing from the Parks and Trails area on Old Fall River Road would be far safer and less intrusive to traffic than our previous course, which had to travel some pretty heavily traveled roads. It is primarily off-road and it's self-guided. So once the riders, it's also not a race. Once the riders leave the park, take a right, go 3 or 4 miles, they'll be in the state forest for quite some time. And when they exit the state forest, they'll be well spread out. The event benefits any of the profits from the event benefit the Ride for Claire campaign, which goes to Boston Children's Hospital.
If I can,
Just
one item to note, I think you're looking to serve alcohol at the event.
Oh, yes, that's why I'm here, right? Yep.
Just to update the board, we looked into this, and we could not find a time when there was a private event on public land that had a liquor license, so the board has never allowed this.
Okay.
And
I
we
think
looked
I was
into our
told that.
insurance company, and they had some, recommendations what would be required, so that's in the board's packet, but I just wanted to kind of.
Oh, sure, yeah, and I forgot that that's probably why I'm here to talk about the event. So typically this event would be at Loon Pond Lodge, where it's a wedding venue. All of our events usually will have some kind of call it an after gathering, because it's not really a party, where there's a food vendor, typically an alcohol vendor. Everybody has 1 beer ticket, and we'll have prizes and whatnot. It's not like a booze fest or anything like that. In this case, that beer vendor would be Mayflower Brewing, who most have heard of. They're fully tip certified and insured. They can provide all of those certifications. They'll run all of the alcohol portion of the event. Food will be a mixture of Two Sisters Catering and Richard Gomes. Richard Gomes typically does.
Hot dogs and stuff.
I'm sorry?
There's hot dogs, right, and
Yes,
hamburgers?
yeah, he typically does hot dogs and burgers and whatnot. We do more of like a full mac and cheese thing. It's kind of our signature for this event. So Richard's agreed to step aside and let us use our vendor for that. But he'll be there selling ice cream, which is going to be kind of cool. And so, but it's not like a big party, but it is obviously a big deal to have that kind of event on public land where there's swing sets and basketball hoops, and it's not typically allowed. To give you an idea, in Rainham, we put on an event on a Wednesday night every year. It's called Cross to a Beer Fest, where the focus actually is alcohol, at a youth soccer facility, and we've never had a single incident.
Great.
So is there a need to address the issue from the insurance agent in terms of his
Well,
recommendation?
that's for
That's in here.
the board to consider. That
So
was.
how much is that, what does that cost?
Well, he may,
They would-
this
they would- they
Mayflower
would
may,
have to-
this Mayflower may have that coverage, that's the, do
They would have to provide.
you know
the
about their
coverage.
coverage?
Yes, they have full liability coverage. They're fully tip certified. They basically said, tell us what the town needs and we'll provide it. If you need a full site layout, and any certificates and whatnot, they're a big enough company, they're used to providing that.
We should just send this
Because
to him.
our insurance guy, John Beauregard, basically says, my suggestion is that we will require a special event liability policy from the New England Adventure Fellowship, naming the town of Dartmouth as an additional insured under the policy. The policy must contain coverage for alcohol as well as the event itself. He would normally recommend a coverage minimum of $1 million, but with the use of alcohol, he would recommend it increasing a minimum limit of $2 million. Would that be an issue?
I don't think it'll be an issue. It'll probably be two separate policies, one from Mayflower Brewing and one from us. The one from us does cover the town for $1 million. I have already uploaded all the insurance certificates.
Okay.
And that covers the event and anything that transpires from the event itself. I can talk to Mayflower and make sure
Yeah.
that those coverages can be made and that the town can be listed.
Yeah, because if you're gonna have Mayflower as your alcoholic vendor, or your malt vendor, yeah, they would need their insurance anyway, so we would need a
Right.
copy of that.
So it sounds like we can make this vote pending that the Mayflower reach that level to the 2 million? Is that?
Well, no, again, between the two of them, that should satisfy the 2 million, one each. Generally, I mean,
I don't think that's what
going
he's
from a
saying.
1 million policy to a 2 million policy, it's really not that much expensive.
And they may have it
expense.
already too.
I think it's somewhere in, if I remember correctly, it's somewhere around maybe $75 to $80 because of the difference in coverage. It's when you get into the higher realms that it becomes
Sure.
cost per,
And we'll have police detail from the town as well.
right.
So,
Okay,
So the vote's going to include that there's a $2 million total coverage between the two.
yeah.
As part of the.
And I'll make that motion
Second.
to approve and have the coverage, the two policies equaling 2 million in coverage.
Okay, that's part of the motion.
Yes.
Okay. We have a second from Mr. Mickelson. Any comments or questions? Are we ready to vote? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's 4-0. I have to say that I first heard from Doug Roscoe, it wasn't that long ago, and I'm pretty impressed how you got things going and did whatever it took to get it done, because I know it was a short window, and obviously you got cooperation from the town as well, so we're happy to have the event here in Dartmouth. Worked out great, so thanks for...
I wish we had started it in Dartmouth, because I typically in years past have had to do this in 4 different towns to make this happen, and this is just all
It's
going to
obviously you
happen.
got some great cooperation from our town people as well to get it done, so...
Once the first year goes by and everyone sees that they didn't realize an event had occurred, then it's pretty easy. But everyone's like, "When's that bike race happening?" "Oh, it was last weekend."
Great.
So,
Sunday, April 7th. 7 to 5, the whole event. 12 to 5 is when the alcohol will be served and the food.
yes, but I'd suspect most people will be gone by 3.
Okay.
So we like to say 5 because
One way
we'll be
or
there
another.
cleaning up.
And
Okay.
people who are watching this, how do they get involved and to participate?
They can find the event on Bike Reg. It is mostly sold out. You actually have to make a larger donation to get in at this point. It sold out in 3 hours this year.
Oh, fabulous.
We limit the amount of people that are allowed in. There's a lot of these events that have like 1,200 people. We only allow 350.
Oh.
But at 250, the larger donation kicks in, So once we hit 250 really fast, and then from there, we get a lot of emails, and then people finally start making the bigger donations. We're up to like 310 right now. So.
No, good luck.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Nice to have you in Dartmouth.
I think that'll definitely
Doug.
be the biggest thing that's ever been out there, though, out at that park for parking. No, the cycling and the parking and all those people. It's got a lot of space,
Okay,
but
we
that'll be
are
fun.
all set here on
Thank
that
you.
one?
Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, Doug. In the interest of having our chief here, not sit, we're going to go a little bit out of order and ask the chief to come through regarding the school traffic supervisor operations update. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to address the board to let you know what's going on. You may have heard it's been kind of in the news, and the school had put out some postings, and we've put out some information as well, but just to hear it direct as far as a situation. So I wanted to stop back with a little bit of history, and then we'll kind of jump up to where we are today. So historically in town, we've had the traffic supervisor position run by the police department. Originally, we had a traffic supervisor at each school in the town, meaning each town school, as well as Friends Academy and Bishop Stang High School. Sometime around 2008, there was a cutback in the program, and they were assigned to town schools only, meaning Bishop Stang as well as Friends Academy lost that coverage. Over the years, the position's been cut back further to some degree, and some of the town schools, like Potter, for instance, lost coverage as well. Between September and October of this past year, we had 3 out of our remaining 4 traffic supervisors resign/retire, leaving 1 position remaining. At that time, we had our traffic safety unit go out to the different schools where they were, observe what was going on, make recommendations regarding traffic flow, and how the remaining traffic supervisor could be best utilized. We then prioritized where we could use this person. We identified 2 schools, and we had her at each of those schools, being Quinn in the middle school. Earlier this month, that remaining traffic supervisor applied for and was hired as a dispatcher and began working with us during school vacation to fill a vacancy there, which we had several. We had met with the school department to discuss the options with this change in the situation we were dealing with. What they had done is several things to try to help out with this. First of all, they had offered bus service to all students. So the requirement is essentially they provide bus service if you don't live near the school. I don't know what the exact distance is, but if you live outside of that area, they are required to provide bus service. The other students are expected to walk to school. This is the middle school I'm talking about, not the Quinn due to the age difference. But so they extended that bus service to all students to try to reduce the number of students who'd be walking into school. Our main concern, obviously, is a crosswalk situation, getting students safely to school. They advertised that through a flyer sent out to all the parents. In addition, the police department had put out a PSA, a public service announcement, with DCTV, notifying parents of the change as well as offering some suggestions about safe driving in school zones, pedestrian crossings, and so forth. We deployed our temporary speed signs in the area of the middle school to give feedback to the public as they were coming into the school zone area. We had members of our traffic enforcement unit reassigned, come in early to be out there, to be visible, and to enforce any speeding violations as well. And our school resource officers were at both school locations in the morning. Officer Tavaz was actually assisting students cross the road. On Slocum Road, there were several students that decided to walk to school this day. The school department, in continuing to work with them, they may have identified an existing staff member who'd be willing to work as a crossing guard. I've also been in contact with the DPW to work on some short-term and medium-term solutions. One of them is we received a grant earlier in the year, the police department did, to purchase through the grant is some solar-powered speed signs, essentially. So instead of our temporary ones, these would be permanently affixed. and provide that immediate feedback on your speed. They were designated for Slocum Road, and we're awaiting the DPW's installation of those. The other thing with the DPW is they have applied for, through SERPED, is a traffic signal analysis for Slocum and Hawthorne. They're hoping this will be conducted in the springtime. That would essentially be the first step in having a traffic control signal installed at that location. So we'll have to wait for that study to come back and then proceed from that point.
Amen to that.
But that would clearly make it a controlled intersection with pedestrian crossing, making it safer for, the motoring public as well, because it can be difficult sometimes to get out of Hawthorne Street. You're coming onto multiple lanes. Visibility can be an issue with cars trying to turn left over there and so forth. So in the long term, but that's not going to happen overnight. So we have some things we're doing in the short term, some in the long term, but the main thing is safety, getting the students to school is our main priority with this. So with that, I'll just open it up for any questions.
Mr. McDonald?
Have you contacted HR to see about posting any positions? If to replace the ones that were lost?
Sure. So when we originally had the vacancies, we had the position posted as it was, and we had no interest at all in that position. I think mainly it's due to the working conditions and the hours. Obviously, you come in for a little while in the morning, then you've got a large break, then you come back in the afternoon. So we had talked about trying to revamp the position a little bit to make it more appealing maybe to some folks, other than having that split shift, let's say, that basically takes up your whole day, but you're really only working for a few hours out of the whole day. Out there this morning, kind of watching what was going on, realistically, there's a very small time frame when all this is happening, and it's less than a half hour, realistically, when all this is really going on. And so, like, when we talk about hiring someone, we're looking at hiring someone for a very short amount of time. And that's kind of where the school department, I think, has been successful in potentially getting someone to step up and manage the crosswalk. Mm-hmm. Because it could be an existing employee who just works a little extra at the beginning and end of their day for some compensation. I know a lot of other towns, looking at what happens, they also have volunteers. It could be PTO members of the community who volunteer to go out there and essentially man the crosswalks to get the students across safely. Right now, the priority is the middle school, where they do have several students walking to school each day, and that's the busier street as well. At the Quinn School, there's bus service for everyone. In addition, they have the parent drop-off, where you drive right through, drop them off curbside, and very safe. So it's not a necessity to cross the street over there. They don't have any students that walk in, and they do offer the curbside drop-off for the parents, in addition to bus service.
Mr. Brooks?
Chief, the only personnel I can think of that the school department may have already targeted are the folks that are considered monitors. They only work that lunch recess shift, and it's usually just a 2-hour block, 10 to 12 or 11 to 1, sort of that block. So they may be available morning and afternoon. I know that your traffic supervisors in the past, they're the group that the park department had targeted to work, gate or security at the beaches. I know that they also worked by doing giving out tickets. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure if that would entice a monitor to have more hours in the summer when there's absolutely no possibility of work through the school department.
Right, yeah, and so that was offered to them.
Okay.
In the summertime, it was optional for them whether they wanted to participate in that or not. But essentially, we were trying to offer them year-round employment if they desired that.
And I know that the person who just accepted the position was one of those folks at the beach.
Yes.
I have seen, of course, as everyone has, a lot of chatter on Facebook. And I do remind the folks that are listening tonight and participating in that banter that if they'd like to help, there are opportunities. They could be a volunteer, or if they're able, they could apply for a position. And as you've said, It's really important, certainly at the Hawthorne Slocum Road is really important. I also know that we've had in the past a traffic supervisor to get the cars back onto the street from the middle school lot. That is important if folks aren't being kind and letting folks in. Quinn, I do know, although they have a great system for parent drop-off, some parents do opt to park on the side streets or in the parking lots of those local businesses and go across the street. Now that is more problematic because there isn't someone telling the traffic to stop. And we're just, as people, we're not very patient and courteous. DeMello School, I know that that's been something to let folks cross their children to go in, and I can see that that being less of an issue at DeMello School. And having been at Potter School for a number of years, we have not had a traffic supervisor, and we have not had a problem. We have very few, if any, children that walk alone. They are not unaccompanied, so it hasn't been an issue. And our drop-off of parents through car traffic and bus traffic exits the lot without issue. So I don't, as you've stated, we're not looking for every school is not in dire straits. We have 2 that are.
Mr. Mixon?
Have we approached any of the retirees?
Yeah, I mean, it's been publicized, and obviously through social media and all the attention that this has attracted, I think most people are aware of the fact that this job is out there. You talking about
maybe just
retired officers or?
Maybe just,
Retired officers now?
yeah, retired police officers.
Retired officers continue to work police details,
Yeah.
and the pay is much different than what we're offering for the crossing guards.
Well, no harm but asking, you know. No harm to ask
Yeah.
once more, just see what happens.
Okay.
I'm wondering if it's time to bring back the crossing guards that used to be when I was a kid. You know, I mean, I'll be honest with you, I still have my badge. A little tiny thing about that big.
Patrol boy?
Yep, exactly. But, again, that was in New Bedford, and it's a lot different, you know. These are all neighborhood schools and neighborhood streets, and they're a lot smaller, less traffic than Slocum Road, you know, can ever even think about.
Right.
So, even thinking about it, you know, having a 5th grader hold a flag that says stop in the middle of the street to let other kids go by, it's pretty dangerous too.
We did have that in Dartmouth when I was in Emmons, a very coveted position to get the badge and the orange
You had the little
sash.
strap. Yeah, you had the
Very
strap, you
coveted
had the
position
badge,
for
man.
5th grade,
You were living large.
I'm happy to say that I
but
was
I do not recommend it.
the 6th grade captain of the patrol boys.
See, there you go.
I did a
See?
great job.
Yeah, see?
Well, Dave, they have a position available for you.
I will say that I was by the Quinn this morning, and
God, we're
it
showing
was
our
pretty
age.
well organized, but I do think, I agree with Mrs. Brooks, that a lot of people are circumventing the system by parking on the side roads and then walking across the street, and there's a lot of walkers crossing, and they don't live around the school. These are,
That's what we observed as well.
Yeah.
I mean, the good thing is those children are accompanied by their parents.
Yes.
And they're crossing in a crosswalk. So we had officers in the area to try to enforce that, keep the traffic slowed down, and make sure that the cars are stopping for the pedestrians in the crosswalk.
I mean, it's a known fact that, you know, school traffic, in and out of traffic is less than be desired anyway, so.
Yeah, it's a tough, 20, 30 minutes in the morning, for sure.
the bottom line is, if someone wants to help and work out, and the position's available, please step forward. Is that what we're talking about? Yes, sir. Okay.
No.
Any other questions for Chief Levesque?
Oh, thank you for the update. Hopefully we
Chief.
can get the people.
Okay.
Do you want to address the dog hearing officer as well, or?
It's just a
Why not?
reappointment.
You're right here.
If
It's
you
just a
wanna, yeah.
reappointment.
Yes, all set.
So, I mean, he's done a good job.
He has.
Hasn't gone to the dogs or anything.
Oh, boy.
So, make a motion that we reappoint Sergeant Bopalan as the dog officer.
Second.
Okay, any comments?
Such a hound.
Thank you.
Good.
I guess we should vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? I hear none. Sergeant McPopolin,
I'll let him know.
position yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No,
With Cultural Center.
let's get the cultural center.
We'll get to it.
Yeah.
Okay. Next on the agenda, C, the Dartmouth Cultural Center garden dedication to Elsie Haskell. We have an outstanding member from the DCC here with us, I do believe. Please introduce yourself and tell us why you're here.
You can pull it down.
Good evening. Pauline Santos, President of the Dartmouth Cultural Center. It has been our idea for quite a while that we have a little garden over at the side of the building that we wanted to dedicate it in memory of Elsie Haskell. We had hoped to do this, but as you know, she passed away. And I've talked to her daughter and other people, and we'd still like to do that. And so what we would like to do is just put a small plaque, you know, between the plants that says Elsie Haskell Garden. Of course, I don't own the garden, so I need to ask you if that's okay.
That's really very
Absolutely,
kind.
no question about it.
Very kind.
I make the motion that we do this immediately.
And we'll pay for the plaque.
We're also
Yeah,
looking for someone to
exactly.
donate some
Exactly.
good
Yeah, and
soil.
we'll pay for the plaque, and it's not gonna be
And
a
the
small
soil.
plaque. It's
And
not
the
gonna
good
be a
soil.
small plaque either. It's gonna be a big one. Elsie Haskell deserves that size plaque.
Yeah, she did love that building and her
did.
job there. Yeah, yeah.
We have a
Thank you.
second on that motion.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion or comments?
Absolutely.
Okay, shall we vote?
Yes.
All in favor, please say
Yes.
aye.
Heck, yes.
4-0, and most importantly, as importantly, I should say, thank you for the work that Dartmouth Cultural Council's done. and
You're
your
welcome.
Amazing operation, and
We
you
love
do have
it.
to come before us for these kind of things, but that's the way it goes, but you've been great
We're all
about
very
that. Thank
proud.
you.
Very
Pauline,
proud
work
of
with-
you.
Work with Mr. McGinnis about the plaque and make sure he gets the bill.
Okay, sure.
He'll be glad
Anything
to sign
else?
Solid gold, just on that.
Next. Stay with, okay, natural gas and electric utility contracts for town buildings. Mr. McGinnis.
Yes, thank you. So Kathy Stanley, who's the town's energy manager, works tirelessly to make sure that the town is getting its most value from its utilities, but also helps to spearhead a number of energy efficiency projects that we have had funded through Green Communities. So Kathy does a tremendous job for the town, but she wanted to come in tonight to update the board on the town building natural gas and utility contracts, which is different from the residents' energy aggregation program. So with that, Kathy?
Thank you very much, Sean. My name is Kathy Stanley. I'm the energy manager for the town of Dartmouth. We recently executed a natural gas supply contract. This is a contract that allows us to buy supply, natural gas supply only, not the utility portion. The utility portion is separate for our town facilities. So they deregulated natural gas in 1999. It was before electricity. Not very many people know that, but and when they did that, they took the actual methane and interstate transportation part of using natural gas and made that a competitive market. And so when you pay your natural gas bill on your utility bill, you're paying for the local transportation of the gas. It picks it up at the city gate and delivers it to your meter. That's what you pay the utility for. And when you go out to bid, or when you go out to buy natural gas for your supply contract, you're purchasing the methane itself and the long-distance supply of that methane over interstate transportation pipelines. So when we ask suppliers to provide a price to us for that, we ask them to break out the methane, which is the NYMEX portion of it. That's NYMEX stands for the New York Mercantile Exchange. It's the commodities market in New York. That's where you buy your, pork bellies, gold, silver, natural gas, those kinds of things. So that part of the price that you're looking at there, $3.87 of the NYMEX, is the methane itself. The basis is that part of the cost that includes that interstate transportation, as well as intrastate transportation. So passing that along the interstate pipelines that actually are in Massachusetts itself, and administrative costs for the supplier. You add those two costs together, that's your supply cost. So when we look for an opportunity to buy this at a low price, one of the things we want to make sure of is that the actual market price, the NYMEX price, the methane price, is on the low side, because that tells us how the market is actually performing. So at $3.87, that's pretty close to the floor. Once you get to $3, it starts to not make sense to even bother taking it out of the ground anymore, because no one's going to make any money. So when you see the NYMEX getting down in the threes, you know it's a good time to buy. I do want to make a couple of comments about this basis cost, because this is something that has been creeping up. As you know, there's been policy decisions have been made in the state of Massachusetts that we are not going to be putting new pipe in the ground for fossil fuels. That's been a long-standing policy decision that I think Liz Warren made 12 years ago or something like that. She didn't make it herself, but that was certainly one of her comments, was we're not going to build new pipe. So when I started in this business helping customers with natural gas procurement in 2002 and 2003, I saw basis prices of about $1. And then I would say about 2 years ago, I bought a basis-only contract for a municipal client because I didn't want to lock in that NYMEX yet. I thought it was too high. So I said, well, we're going to just buy the basis and let that NYMEX flow, and we'll lock it in. At that point, it was $2. This time, it's $2.97. So that is a number that is going to continue to go up, because the more natural gas is not going away here. I mean, we're not seeing it go away as fast as I think everybody was hoping it would. So that means the supply and demand for reservation on that local pipe is getting more and more and more expensive. You're competing with everyone else who uses natural gas, including the electric manufacturing plants that are making electricity from natural gas. They're also having to buy that basis. Mm-hmm. So we've locked in this price for 3 years. I think our price on our previous contract was $5.98. I think this was a very good thing for us to do. I am concerned about basis prices in New England. I buy natural gas for several municipal customers. I'm about to lock in a price tomorrow where that basis is almost $4. So it's just something we have to continue to watch, but it is very concerning, because it is indicative of the fact that the fossil fuel costs here are going to continue to go up. And there's nothing we can really do about it. So I can follow that NYMEX price, and I can make sure we're always buying at the lowest, but that doesn't always ensure that we're going to be able to continue to buy at or below our current price. We're always going to be pushing up against that. Does anybody have any questions about that?
So this price of $6.84, that's guaranteed for 3 years?
Yes,
So the basis price will stay at $2.97 for the 3-year contract?
that's correct.
Okay. All right, yeah. At least we know what we're
It
going
went
to
up
have.
$1 over the last 3 years.
Well, at least we know what we're going to have for budgeting-wise for 3 years, so.
And that's part of the, I mean, you know, we can't always predict the lowest prices, but as long as we can budget for it and plan for it, that's half the battle.
Yeah.
I do want to take this opportunity to talk to you folks about something else that I think is important for us to start thinking about. Before I left the office today, I pulled up the website iso-ne.com. That is the independent system operator, the actual grid for New England, the 6 New England states. So these are the people that manage to keep the lights on. They're the New England power grid. Mm-hmm. And they publish all the time, continuously on their website, the fuel mix of what we're using to make electricity right now. And when I left today, 31% of our electricity was coming from natural gas, 28% from nuclear, 23% from imports, so we were importing electricity from our friends in New York or Quebec. 12% was from renewables. So all of the work that we've done so far have resulted in 12% of our electricity in New England from renewables.
That's not much.
6% from hydro, less than 1% from coal, less than 1% from something the ISO calls other.
Squirrels.
And then they broke down the renewables. So of the 12% renewables, 29% comes from solar, 28% comes from wind, 20% from refuse, 19% from wood, and 2% from landfill gas. That breakdown is representative of the forecasted load for today, which was 12,640 megawatts for New England, 6 states. Today's capacity, what they have spinning and could put on if we need it as dispatchable assets, 19,652 megawatts. Our capacity here in the New England area on a rather hot day or a day with a high load typically runs around 32,000 megawatts. So that's our reality, and it is 2024. I think it's very important. I want to ask you to do something. I want to ask you to revisit, and I don't know what your history has been in terms of your how you view these different fossil fuels or not fossil fuels or renewables or whatever, but I want you to start looking into and educate yourself with respect to new nuclear technologies. Nuclear technologies today are very different than they were 40 years ago. There is a new documentary out by Oliver Stone called Nuclear Now. It's available on Prime if you want to stream it. It does a great job of laying down the history of nuclear energy in this country, what's going on in the field today, what the real problems are, and what some of the myths might be about the use of nuclear energy. Nuclear energy is a 100% emissions-free form of energy. It is the cleanest form of energy in New England right now. It is also the safest. If you look at the number of people who die every year from coal, it's in the millions. So I just want to ask you to start educating yourself about this. I think our policy makers are starting to realize that the only way we're going to get to a carbon-free future is with substantial use of nuclear energy. The newer technologies that are coming out of the Idaho National Laboratory, the Oak Ridge Laboratory, Lawrence Livermore, those folks are in the process of developing tons of different new nuclear technologies like molten salt reactors, small modular reactors, reactors that use spent fuel. So when we talk about nuclear waste, what is nuclear waste? Nuclear waste is fuel that has not been used. That's what it is. And some of these technologies can actually use that fuel, that unspent fuel, that waste for fuel. Consider our Navy, the U.S. Navy has been operating all of its ships and submarines with nuclear energy for 40 years. And they've done a very good job with that. So there's a whole bunch of technology and experience there for us to learn from. So thank you for listening and for hearing me out. I hope that you are able to glean something from this, take, some ideas of being able to look into it, see what you think, and if you have an opportunity to help us sway policy, I hope that you take that opportunity to help us do that. I know that part of the problem here is fear. People are afraid of this, and I think it's important that we address the realities and myths around this so that we can solve this problem. Fission is here right now. Fission works. We don't have to invent anything, and it can be done. We can definitely do what we need to do with today's technology. So, thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
Comments? Could you, one quick question?
Yeah.
I know it's not your field, but I think you probably have something to offer. These kind of obscene-looking requests you get from energy companies wanting to take our aggregates as a residence, and they come in looking like I got one yesterday, looked like a Social Security check that I was going to take with me. And any comment on that, or what the average consumer resident should do to be aware?
Thank you for bringing it up. So with respect to aggregation, I'll take this as an opportunity to again remind everybody where we're at. Why not, right? Our standard default price on our aggregation.
Mike, thank you.
Yes, is 15.784 cents right now. That's where we stand. You can opt in to 100% renewable at 17.372 cents if you like. These are prices that were set in December of '23. They are good until November of '25. The Eversource basic price right now is $17.216. So you're saving money against the current Eversource price, which is in effect until July of '24. Your current supplier is Constellation. I don't know if you've been following any of the articles in the Globe, but the Attorney General is ripped about all of this. They are seriously thinking about making retail electricity no longer legal in Massachusetts. We, of course, are fighting for the right to keep our aggregation in place because it allows us to give our residents the opportunity to sit at a price that's fixed and not vary. I mean, last winter, I think Eversource had a price of 33 cents over the course of the winter. Right. So we definitely want to do what we have to do to protect our residents. But I would not be all broken up if the AG was able to put a stop to some of these scams and bait and switch and things that are, and inevitably they're targeting, you know, the most vulnerable members of our community. So you have to be very careful with anything that comes through from energy suppliers. I'm not saying they're all terrible, but you need to be very careful. If you're not sophisticated, please ask somebody to help you. In my opinion, anybody who gets any material from any energy supplier in this town can bring it to the select board and leave it with one of the folks who works there, and I will personally look at it and tell you if it's our aggregation or something else, if nothing else.
Is there a way to determine which households in town are not part of the aggregate? Because I received from a former school principal who's on fixed income, retired, and his electric bills were around $600. And I told him, I says, well, are you on the town program? He said, I don't know. I said, well, let me see your bill. He wasn't. So he signed up, and his bill was immediately cut in half. Well, I received an email from him over the weekend, and he has a neighbor whose electric bills he saw was $750, not on the aggregate. So I told him to call, I had told them to have them call the town to get on the aggregate to cut, so I'm assuming that their bill would be cut probably at least 40% to start saving some money. Is there any way we can find out who is not on the aggregate and ask them why they're not on the aggregate, or if there's a reason for it, or because basically when the program came on, you could opt out. You automatically signed in, but you could opt out.
That's correct.
Now you can opt out and opt in back and forth.
Yes.
I mean,
so the only way that you could not be on our aggregation is if, one, you had a brand new service, built a house,
right,
something along those lines, where that may have been missed by the aggregation because they went through and gathered all of the town's accounts up. So that's possible. Or if at some point previous to now you opted out.
Right.
Or if prior to the aggregation you signed a contract with another supplier. If any of those things happened, then yes, you would have not been included in the aggregation.
Right.
So that gets tricky because we can't interfere with a contract that's in place that a resident chose to execute with a third-party supplier. Right. That's not our...
Yeah, I'm wondering, well, then we can interfere with Eversource, though.
Well, Eversource doesn't care because they don't make any money on this anyway, you know?
I mean, the benefits are there. I mean, I had recently taken over a property down in South Dartmouth, and they were on Eversource's program, and the winter bills were $700-800 a month.
Those winter prices last year were...
Right, and then once I went in last January, the bill was automatically cut 50%.
Yes.
And it made the owners, very happy that they didn't have to pay all that. But
I think they periodically sort of sweep the town accounts to see so they pick up anybody that's not on our contract, and also and is on default rate. I mean,
Actually, not necessarily, because, I mean, I
Yeah.
get things from Price Energy and all that, and I just toss it in the garbage
Yeah.
anyway.
I
You
do
know,
too.
And then I get assaulted at BJ's from Good Energy people, and I kind of tell them, I say, well, what's your price? And then I tell them the town price, and they're like, well, can you beat that? And then they don't say anything, and then I complain to the manager and say, I become a Karen at that point, and I say, hey, you know, these guys are screwing your customers.
Yeah, I mean, and yet, you know, I mean, I also have a couple of sweet, wonderful people that I know through my church who are ruthless around their electric price, and they shop it. They shop it all the time, and they're in and out of contract. And I mean, these people are sharp as sharks, you know, about their electricity price, and that's what they choose to do with
It's
their
like playing
time.
the stock market. I can't get
Yeah,
involved with that.
exactly,
It's like, yeah.
exactly. I mean, those folks that want to do that, you have to allow them the opportunity to do it, and they do save money, but that's what they do all the time is watch that price, and are constantly looking at, you know, well, can you give me 2 cents off of it for the next 8 months? Fine, I'll sign for those 8 months, and then I'll start shopping 6 months in, and
It's like price shopping for a can of beans between Shaw's, Stop and Shop, and Market Basket.
people really like to do that, but the vast majority of the residents in Dartmouth are on the
Right.
aggregation. When we looked at the numbers, Sean, I think we said something like around, and I don't have exact numbers, but something like 10,000 are in the aggregation and something under 500 opted out.
Yeah, that's good.
So it's a very small amount that are opting in and out, which is, you know, their absolute right to do.
So then, just this thought, just, you know, that'll be the last thought on this, but could there be, Mr. McGinnis, at the time when new construction comes in town and they go for a building permit in town, that we can just say, look, you know, the town head's on an aggregate program, you may want to investigate, have your client, you know, once it becomes a finalization of the bill, you know, to look into the town aggregate program to save them electricity. You know, they would make the contractor look good in their eye, and they would save the homeowners some bucks. You know, can we do that?
Yeah, we could make that part of issuing the permit. It gets emailed, so we could make that,
Fine.
put that
Right.
information in the email.
Okay.
Anything else? You do a great service for our town. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for hearing me out.
Next. Thank you. We're going to move a little bit out of order as well. We're now going to call on the Fire District 1 building permit fee waiver request. And I believe we have
Somebody.
people from the district. You are.
I am Kevin Murphy. I'm the Prudential Committee Chairman for District 1 Fire Department. And we have with us tonight the Deputy Chief, Jake Betancourt, and the Assistant Chief, Tim Lancaster, both long-serving members of the department. I'm sure that they're eminently more qualified than I am to answer any questions that you have, so I'd like to bring them up and
Great.
have at it.
Thanks, Mr. Murphy.
Good evening, Tim Lancaster, Assistant Chief, District 1. As you're aware, and your chairman has, District 1, to give you a little background, is in the process of doing a much-needed renovation to our headquarters at 10 Bridge Street. The building was built in the mid to late 70s and clearly is at the point where it needs some technology upgrades to meet both firefighter and staff safety, as well as some ADA upgrades to move us into the next 40 years. So you may be familiar that our partner districts have done similar projects over the last 10 to 15 years. Ironically, their buildings were actually a little newer than our buildings that they renovated. They were built in the early 1980s. But nevertheless, we started this project, I believe, in 2018 with a feasibility study, and COVID kind of got in the way of things like it did with many things throughout the country. It kind of held us up a little bit, but we're back on track. We're trying to move forward because the need is greatly there to get this station upgraded. As part of that process, I'm also the chair of the building committee. Deputy Betancourt is also a member of the building committee. As we move through this process, we're here to request that the building fees be waived as they were waived for the other two districts when they did their similar projects. We're here to answer any questions about that, whatever needs to be done.
Well, first of all, I wasn't around when they did it, but I don't see no reason why we can't you know, why we can't waive the fees for the District 1.
Yeah, the fees, it would be fairly substantial, based on the new building permit fees?
I mean, we don't really know what the fees are going to be.
Yeah,
I mean,
because they need
What they've done in the
Yeah,
past.
they need plans, and it's got to
The
be
point
done.
is that,
But we've
What
done
the
it in
board's
the
done in the
Yeah,
past.
we've
I
done
think
it in
we
the
should.
past, so I don't see no point.
I don't
so
have
whatever the
any
fee,
issue.
It doesn't matter how much.
Yeah, I'll just make them,
Motion to waive the,
yeah, second that.
Any questions before we vote? Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? I hear none. Good luck with the project.
Thank you. Do you think it would be possible for your board, through Mr. McGinnis, to just send us an email just outlining that so we can pass it along and show it to our Prudential Committee as well?
You can get a copy of the minutes.
Yeah, that would be good too.
Vote.
Yeah, perfect.
Thanks
Excellent.
for coming in uniform,
Great.
very impressive.
Once they're approved.
thank you.
Okay. Okay. As Mr. McGinnis is moving on to our next subject, which is a long-term planning, long-term capital planning committee, I have a couple of comments that I'd like to make first, which reflect the members of that capital planning committee, and we urging to make sure we make these comments before we begin. This is a project and a program that most of us, including me, has never really seen in its totality as we've tried to put this together. This is a plan. The people on this committee represent the Finance Committee. I see Terry Ham here. Thank you, Terry. Bruce Brooks from the Capital Planning. Nobody knows the projects needed in town, around town, better than Bruce. The director of the DPW, the chair, I should say, Rob Almy. A giant part of our project are going to be things that DPW needs to do over the next many years. We have Mr. Kiley, the Assistant Superintendent of Schools. Gary Carrero's with us, and I don't think I missed anybody else. Of course, Mr. McGinnis is directing traffic. Did I miss anybody, Terry?
No,
I don't think so.
No, you got them all.
Thank you.
Right here.
And this is a plan. This is a plan. It's giant. It goes over the next 30, 20, 30, 40, and 50 years. We're trying to plan out the things we need over town. The school department has gone out of their way to try to project what they may or may not need over years. We may do these buildings. They may change the project. They may renovate a building. But these are things that are going to take action as we go forward. This is strictly a plan to give us a guide to know what we need to do over time, to then allow us to budget on a year-to-year basis things like roads in schools that we need to budget on a regular basis. This is going to be vetted through, we're going to have open sessions, and we're going to have presentations at town meeting in June. All this is being vetted out because people need to hear it. We want to get comments. We want to get feedback. But by no means does this mean that the bulldozers are starting to roll tomorrow morning and we're going to start all these projects. It does not mean that. It means we're trying to plan and give our residents a place to comment on it and then move forward. What kind of a town do we want in the long term regarding schools and clean water, et cetera. So with that being said, I also want to really, truly congratulate Mr. McGinnis and Mr. Kiley and his staff for putting together all the detail and the data we needed to make this thing happen, and appreciate the work that's been done. With that, Mr. McGinnis.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, nice introduction. I think you kind of hit it on the head there. So what we're going to talk about tonight, there's a lot of information here. So these slides will be made available. I'll try to cover it. You'll see some of these slides. They'll look busy. I'll really try to kind of break it down, but it's kind of important information. So we're going to look at the town's proposed and potential long-term debt analysis. What we're going to do, we're going to go through Dave's kind of done it already, the Long-Term Capital Planning Committee, potential capital projects and funding schedule, and like Mr. Talbot said, these are potential. We'll review some debt scenarios. We'll do an analysis of the tax impact of the debt scenarios that we're going to look at, long-term debt schedule, what it looks like in comparable communities. You hear me talk about that quite a bit. And then we'll also look at enterprise fund borrowing impacts. We talk a lot about the work that needs to be done, water treatment and sewer treatment. So we'll do that via the analysis of user rates and the impact on utility bills. And then we'll talk about the total impact of everything over the next close to 50 years. As Mr. Talbot mentioned, the Long-Term Capital Planning Committee is a member of the Select Board himself, Finance Committee Representative Terry Ham, Bruce Brooks from the Capital Planning Committee, Rob Almy from the Board of Public Works, myself, Gary Carrero, our Director of Budget and Finance, and James Kiley, and also our Assistant Town Administrator, Chris Vitale, and Magnolia McComish, the Communications Coordinator. She attends as well because their input's been vital as well. So, as we mentioned, what are some potential projects that the town could be looking at over the next 50 years? This list is comprehensive. None of these are set in stone. None of these are ready to be funded, but they are known projects that need to be funded in the near future, some of them. And you can see on the right-hand side the funding year. It goes chronologically. We start with a possible recreation center. There's a high school roof and windows that need to be replaced. Possible Paden-Aaron Bridge. With the Paden-Aaron Bridge, it's hopeful that there'll be some grant funding available for that. So that may not be a project. So when we look at these projects, as Mr. Talbot mentioned, these are kind of worst case what we're looking at in the future. In orange here, we have lumped together a number of projects. COA improvements, we're currently doing a feasibility study to look at the whole facility at the Council on Aging to see what can be done for the future, for future programming. It's a great facility to do great programming, and the use is increasing. You've seen me here before to talk about Seaport Economic Council grants that the town has received for a Dias Landing and a Pontiac Landing to do a feasibility study about the future of that area, and also a boat ramp at Rogers Street to be more in line with recreational boaters and commercial fishermen. That'll help them to get in the water from the existing boat parking lot. And then completing the improvements to Memorial Stadium over here that were started prior to COVID, but since COVID, the costs to complete have gone up. And then subsequent to that, there's 4 schools that need to be replaced. The middle school / high school we have on here, Potter or DeMello, so we have it on there twice, so both of those need to be replaced, and also the Quinn School. When we look at the schools, I mean, the decision's really up to the school committee and the town about how they want to present this, but this is a worst-case scenario where we're replacing possibly 4 to 5 schools. I don't know if that in reality will happen over the next 50 years, but we're kind of taking the worst case. And then lastly, at the bottom in red, you can see we do have some borrowing projects in place now, when their debt is set to expire. The police station, the North Branch Library, and we have some miscellaneous projects from years ago that were funded through borrowing. So that is the whole list. You can see the amount of each project. What we're anticipating would be the interest rate for each project, and also the term of the borrowing. You can see we're kind of taking some initiative. The governor had mentioned last month that they have a new Empowerment Act. Part of that act would be to allow communities to borrow for school building projects for up to 40 years. So where in the past it was 30, so they've extended it 10 years. So we're taking advantage of that proposed Empowerment Act when we look at all the funding. So all these projects total nearly $300 million over the next 50 years.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
One point of information. Those numbers in the school represent half of the amount, because the other half would be?
Yes, those, I have MSBA, the Mass School Building Association, in parentheses. It is anticipated that those are, the MSBA generally funds 50% of a school construction project, and these are half of what so the actual cost would be twice the numbers that are on here. So when we look at that debt, this just shows in a broad sense what the town's debt schedule could look like to finance all those projects. And you can see how it peaks and then subsides after 2050. And really, it is in about 2030 where there's a number of projects that could be funded. And I have them here in the box, the recreation center, the high school roof that you can see. And that's where the borrowing would jump to just about $9 million per year in borrowing payments for the town. You can see by 2050, when you add the Potter, DeMello, and Quinn schools, so you've got all the schools included in that, that's 2050. That's just about $13 million annually in borrowing costs to fund a number of projects, which is quite a bit. And then you can see around 2053, a number of these projects start to be completed. So they're kind of the projects are struck through here, and you can see where the amount of borrowing goes down quite a bit. And that's important to note, what you'll see on the next slide. In yellow here, this is the same borrowing schedule stretched out a little bit. But what happens when you borrow for these projects, you've committed the funds, the projects are complete, and you have this borrowing capacity that's left over. Now, it's a number of years away, at about 2050, 2053, but it gives the town future debt capacity annually of $21 million that they could spend on other borrowing projects without really increasing the impact on the residents because the funding is already committed. Very important. So people always ask, well, what's the impact on the resident, in their tax bill? So we try to look at that. So this is the same debt schedule, and you can see in particular years what the year would be, and then what the increase in the tax bill would be for their average resident. So now down in the light blue, we have the FY23 average home assessment was $421,000. The average tax bill was just under $3,700. So that's for the average resident. You can see in 2027, I think that's the first project we had in place that we were saying was potential. That was the recreation center. The average tax bill would go up $86 for that. As you move along, you get to 2030, and that's when a number of projects start to kick in. You saw that in the previous slide. Tax bill goes up $585. This is from FY23. You can see it really maxes out in 2050. You saw the slide I had earlier. That was all the projects, all the schools were included in that. In 2050, the average tax bill, the $3,700 tax bill, would increase $800. So it'd be $4,500 in today's dollars. It's significant, but when you look at the number of projects the resident is getting for that amount of money, it is, really great value. And it's important to note that, we hear this a lot. These are huge dollars, $20 million, $30 million. Well, when you fund it over time and it's on the tax rate, it is significant, but if everybody's paying a little bit, it's not that much of a burden. It's still a burden, but for what the value for what you're getting is really important. And then you can see in 2053, it really drops off because, as you saw earlier in the slides, a number of those projects, the funding is completed, and the average tax bill is about $268, and then it really drops off as you go along into 2070. Debt as a percent of the budget. So, just like when your credit agency looks at you, they want to know that you have some debt and that you're paying your debt. So that's important. Right now, the town's debt as a percentage of its overall budget is around 1%. It's really low. In the bottom here in dark blue, the average debt as a percent of the budget for all of Massachusetts in 2022 was 7.5%. So the average community in Massachusetts, 7% of their overall budget is debt. We're at 1%. So when you equate that and you go back to our debt percent of budget schedule, this is not the same as the borrowing schedule because it's debt as a percent of the budget. And when we look at this over time, we take the FY24 budget, and we're pretty conservative, but we assume it will increase 2.5% every year into the future. And then we use that to base our percent of debt in that. So you can see in 2030, we're at 7.86% of the total budget, and we're getting the recreation center, the high school, the Payne Narrow Bridge, COA improvements, and the middle school or / high school. So in 2030, that's significant, but we're still at about just over 7%, just over the average. We're at the average. So as a percent of the budget, we'd be at the average, and we'd be funding a number of those projects. And that's why when you see what the state average is, 7.5%, that's what a lot of these communities are doing. They're investing in the future. And then you can see I've got the Potter School, DeMello School, and you can see how it goes out over time. But it really peaks in 2030, 2035, and then it starts to go down a little bit. 2040, it's still up there, but by 2050, it starts to sink. In 2053, it's at 2. 2070, you're back to the 1.34, which is pretty much what we're at right now. You hear me talk about this a lot when we look at comparable communities. Dartmouth is a large community. It's a diverse community. It's not similar to, say, a Fairhaven or a Westport, just because they're close to us, but we're more similar to other communities, which I'll get into, and you've seen those. The tax rate when I did this, which was FY24, or FY23, was 878. Our comparable communities, what their average tax rate is 1160. That's a big difference in a tax rate. 1160 to 878 doesn't seem like a lot, but if Dartmouth had a tax rate of 1160, that would give the town $23 million annually in budget capacity to either do borrowing or to do operational budget to fund school programs, things like that. So we're not looking to do that, but I think it really illustrates the point. Excuse me. And now you see the average tax rate is 1160, and I've talked about this before. Well, the Dartmouth fire districts are separate taxing authorities. Okay, we should look at that. So District 1 is 0.43 cents, District 2 is $1.28. So when you add that to the 878, we're still well below the average of other communities with our tax rate. What are those other communities? There's a number of them. We don't look at just a handful. There's probably 15 to 20 on here. I've listed them alphabetically, but you can see what the population is, all very similar to Dartmouth. Their tax levies, very similar. Everything is very comparable. And we have probably the lowest tax rate on this list. So you can see you've got Andover, you've got Bourne, Braintree, Dedham, Duxbury, Norwood, Marshfield, Falmouth, Sandwich. So these are all really great communities to compare us to, and they do a lot. So you saw this slide earlier about our tax rate and the budget capacity. So our maximum proposed debt obligation in the year 2050 would be $13.4 million. That's still well below the $23 million just to get us to the average tax rate. And I know this can seem a little confusing. It's just a long way of saying that these projects are affordable to the community. Now, they're not without, we realize that it is an increase in costs, but when you look at it compared to other communities in the state, a number of the other communities, it's really affordable for Dartmouth. Now we talk about enterprise fund projects. So as you all know, but the public may not know, enterprise funds are separate from the general fund in that all of their operations need to be paid for through user fees. So your water and sewer bill that comes in quarterly, that funds everything that DPW does to run those operations. When we look at utility billing summary for 2023, I've broken this down into two sections. At the top, in kind of pinkish orange, is residential accounts, and in green is commercial accounts. The town currently has 19,000 residential accounts. They account for 43% of the total billings of DPW. Down below, the town has 275 commercial accounts, and those account for 56, almost 57% of the total billings. And the annual billings for all of water and sewer are almost 16 million. Now, if you go back up, I have the average water and sewer bill and the median water and sewer bill. So I have those to illustrate the point. The average water and sewer bill is $353. This takes just the overall average. The median sewer bill is $206.52. I like to show this because the median is a more accurate indicator of what a person will be looking at for their bill. The average takes some pretty big fluctuations. Someone may have an irrigation system, someone may have a second home. So they may use none, the irrigation system may use a lot, so it really throws off the average, where the median is more in line with what people will be looking at for their utility bill. And the same goes for the commercial accounts. When you look at it, the average commercial account is $3,600, the median is $700. So it just shows you we have some very, very large users, and they're throwing off the average. So that's what we're looking at when we're assessing what the impact would be on borrowing. What are some upcoming projects that we know the DPW will be having to deal with as it relates to water and wastewater treatment? Water treatment upgrades. Last year, the DPW finished an analysis of the water system. They projected about $20 million in improvements over the next 5 to 10 years. They've done some of those improvements. The remainder is here. That's where I get the $16.3 million. They're currently in the process of doing a wastewater treatment analysis, system analysis. So this is a projection, but we're projecting they're going to need about $50 million in improvements to bring the system up to where it needs to be for the future. It's projected that funding year would be 2030. The water treatment upgrades would probably be projected at 2027. And then lastly, we have water and wastewater infrastructure improvements just in general. And I have an asterisk here on this because while we all went through this last year with Mass DEP and their proposed Title V amendments and what that impact would be not only on people that are connected to water and sewer, but people that are on septic systems, we're anticipating if that were to come to fruition, if it was impacting residents that are on septic systems, funding could be made available through the town to help offset the cost or help to supplement the cost for the residents. So we've rolled that in to just general water and wastewater infrastructure improvements. It's not going to be $20 million for people with septic systems, but we're trying to roll some money into that. So, and that would be anticipating starting in 2033. So DPW is looking at about $86.3 million in improvements over the next, 10 years. So how does that get funded? We try to break it down like this. Water treatment upgrades, you've seen the chart above. If that starts in 2027, their borrowing costs for DPW would be about $834,000 a year. What would that look like to the average residential bill? Well, the average bill would go up to increase $1,890. The median bill would increase $11. So it's about a 5% increase. So the new average bill would be about $372. The median bill would be $217. So an increase, not significant, not insignificant, but it's affordable. We get to 2030 where we start to implement the wastewater treatment upgrades. That's a big borrowing, $50 million. It's over 30 years. The borrowing costs go up to about $2.2 million for those projects. The overall, if you include the water treatment upgrades, now we're compounding, they're looking at about $3 million a year in borrowing. What does that look like for the average bill? Well, the average bill will go up $50. And this is $50 from today. So, the new average the average utility bill will be $422. The median bill will be $247. So it's not going up that, but this is, we should look at the bill. So overall, for these two projects, the rate increase from 2023 would be about 19%. So for, $66 million in projects. Now we get to the water and sewer infrastructure improvements, another $20 million. Now this rolls it all in together. If we were to look at that, the new average tax bill would be $445. The new median bill would be $260, and it would be a 26% increase. So very affordable for what the resident is getting. That's on the utility bill. So when we look at this, these numbers are huge, just like I said, with our general fund borrowing. And even when it's just on the utility ratepayers, it can still be affordable for the utility ratepayers to have $86 million in borrowing costs for the infrastructure. Now, this would also, this could be offset and lowered if they're able to increase the number of people on the water and sewer system. So this would be worst case scenario costs in today's dollars. So this just summarizes what I was just saying. The $86.3 million in projects really results in a $54 increase to the median annual residential water and sewer bill. I think that's very affordable. It's annually, not even monthly. So $54 over the course of the year can help cover all these costs. Now, this slide's very busy. What I'm trying to indicate here is up top is the, let's see, how do we do this? I'm trying to add all the costs together. So I've shown you all the borrowing that could be potential borrowing for general fund items. I've shown you all the borrowing that could be possible with the enterprise fund items. On the bottom here, it kind of shows you the timeline of the borrowing. Important to note, in 2053, you see a lot of this borrowing stop and drop off. And in the yellow here, the bottom row of the numbers, you can see, what's the combined borrowing impact over the years. It goes from 71, 75 all the way to, it peaks at 2040, and then it starts to go down again by 2080. So a number of these projects, very affordable. This is a lot of projects. I don't imagine the town is going to do all of these projects over the next 50 years, but it's important to note that it can be done, and it's affordable for the community. So in order to get started on this, what we're planning to do for a Springtown meeting is create a long-term capital stabilization fund. What this fund is going to allow us to do is to offset capital project costs, and possibly it can also be used to supplement debt payments to reduce the tax burden, and also it can be used to provide matching grant funds for capital projects. So a lot of potential there. What we'd like to do is allocate $1 million to start the stabilization fund this year. We have the money. Gary's been working very hard to make sure that we're stewarding our funds properly. So we think we'll be able to do this, once the Capital Planning Committee approves it, Finance Committee, Select Board, and once again, town meeting at the end. So I think that's a good start to get going on this process. And that is the presentation. I think it's nice to know the town can afford some of these things. They don't have to afford them. But people, like I said earlier, they hear these numbers. They are very large numbers to the tune of $300 million. But when you break it out over a number of years, the impact is not as significant as people think.
I think the word is incredibly large numbers, not large numbers. And to suggest that, it's only this and it's only that, it's 50 here, 500 there, 600 there, these numbers stop multiplying. We don't have any inflation built into any of this. We don't know what's going to happen even 5 years from now in our economy with the way things are going. Anything could tip it off. Some of these projects could start early, but, I'm more concerned right now with looking at numbers like this. I'm concerned about the seniors, very concerned about the people that have fixed incomes. Looking at these numbers into 10 years, these people will not be able to live in this town. We will not attract people to come here, and at the end of the day, you won't have the cash to pay for half of these projects. That's my concern. We must take care of the seniors, and we have to worry about. They're the ones that we're in charge of the rest of their lives when they move into this town or they've lived here in their entire life. These numbers are staggering.
And while I agree with Mr. Nicholson, I also look at the slide that you presented with the projects, and other than the recreation center, which would be a new project, everything else is based on what we already own, improving it, it's extending its life, and understanding that we're looking at the potential of building new schools, but we have to know that they are already of an age that, and at any time, including what we're talking about with the water sewer treatment plant, there could be a catastrophe, and we'd have to deal with it without planning. At least I am happy to look that we are planning for this and what we can do. And we all know that while it's important to look at our seniors, the seniors that inherit the debt that we're looking on long-term are our young residents. I looked at the long term and thought, well, that's fine. I will be 100 then, and I probably won't know I'm paying any of that or won't be. But we have to really think about the town we want to live in. The town we want to live in. Does it have decrepit, unhealthy buildings, or does it have safe, healthy, state-of-the-art buildings? And while I would love to see a recreation center, and I think once open, everybody would be happy. We're not, at this list, we're not building pie-in-the-sky stuff. So.
Mr. McDonald, comment?
Well, the presentation was basically long-range planning, not long-range building. So a lot of these are planning for what is coming down the pike. I mean, to be honest with you, there could be an incident in one of our buildings right now that would render the building useless, and we'd have to do something right away. So that changes. But this gives a blueprint for thought for our capital needs in the future. And, you know, one of the things that I want to make sure that this document states that it's fluid, that it's not written in stone, that it can change every year, just like any other capital needs plan that each department submits every year. It's fluid. It's what is necessary in the coming year, and that changes. School department, does a very good job on their 5-year, 7-year plan when it comes to looking at items, and things get moved all the time. Very, very rare does something stay in its one spot, every year, and it finally gets to it. Sometimes it moves it up, sometimes it moves it down, sometimes we move it back. Same thing with this. But the realization is, one of the things that, we definitely do need to look at is that bridge. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That's coming down the pike. And if you take a look at, our school buildings, the youngest building we have is already 20 years old, and our oldest is, the most use is, they're 70. I'm not even counting the Cushman School, which is probably close to 100.
Yeah.
So, it's just, it's the one thing that really, and it's always bothered me, is that suburban school districts such as Dartmouth, get the short end of the stick of the MSBA funding. Always has. Where you get schools like Fall River and New Bedford, where they can build schools and get 90% of their funding, So, I mean, it's not, they build a $70 million building, and they get, they only have to spend 14, so that makes it easier on their budget. Whereas a $70 million building, the town has to spend 35, and we get back 35 if we're lucky. And that formula changes all the time, not to the favor of the suburban schools. But this is a plan. This is something that, gives our financial people and our staff an idea of what is needed and what needs to be looked at in the future. We would be remiss in not doing this. That's for sure.
And along those lines, I might add is, for doing projects like this is an investment in the community. And what it does for everybody that's a homeowner that pays taxes in the community is the value of their homes go up because you're providing this. People want to come here. People want to use this. So not unlike doing improvements to your own home, those improvements pay back. You get a return on investment. The residents and property owners will get a return on investment here because their property values will stay high or go higher. And when they do go to sell, they're going to get more for their money. So that's important when people think long-term and then, what they want the community to be, but also they're investing and they get to get paid back too when they do sell their property.
Plus the fact that it allows the general public to determine what type of community they want to live in. Do they want to live in where, kids can go to school in good, decent buildings or crappy buildings? Do they want to drive over, a bridge that is put together by chewing gum and baling wire, or it's going to last another, 100 years, that type of thing. So,
It's something that's necessary.
I'd like to add a couple of comments. Firstly, we now have a young staff that, with a top priority of finding and getting grants. It's going to become a full-time job, and I think many of these projects will be able to retain all kinds of grants and help where that looks like the maximum cost, and maybe, and certainly inflation is a part of the package, but I think grants are a very important part of what we can do. Secondly is, I think you need to separate, for instance, the DPW projects versus a school project. The DPW projects are absolutely wanted, needed, and we want to reach those before we reach a crisis point, and that's what they're doing. They're doing the proper study and feasibility to keep us going so we can then make the improvements and get the grants we need there. I think when you have the low tax rate and we have low long-term debt, it speaks of our ability to function well and using our dollars well, but it doesn't give us the ability to look long-term to pay for these projects. And that's what we're trying to do here, because we need to address it. It's a tough combination with a low tax rate. And I say that, and a lot of people say, low tax rate, my taxes are a fortune. Well, comparatively speaking, we have a very low tax rate. We have no long-term debt. And that means we're not investing enough in our long-term planning, and that's what this is all about. And the last comment is about the schools. They tried to put this together so that we could do some kind of a plan. I think this will be the absolute most fluid part of this plan. Maybe one school can be extended by doing an addition or repair or something to it. Maybe we can do an extra 5 or 10 years, but that's going to be up for the school department and the school committee to make those decisions. And I trust that they're going to be able to do that and do it well so the plan can be, it may not be this every 5 years. It may be stagnant or whatever it might be, but that's not our determination. We'll leave it to those experts to tell us what that's going to be. Talk about fluid, that's the most fluid part of the program. So that's not for me. Anybody else?
Well, I did want to point out, just piggyback on what you just said, is that because the water sewer treatment needs are fulfilled through the enterprise fund. Mm-hmm. They are not from our general fund.
Yep.
So we have to look at that separate. So if people are looking at, why isn't that included on the initial list that we saw, it's because it's not out of the general fund.
Correct.
But we do have to look at that. And I see, having toured the sewer treatment plant, I can't believe that we won't be talking about that before 2030.
Right. Yeah, well, they're racing to get that feasibility studies done to do that.
Thank you, Mr. McGinnis. That was
great presentation. And I'd like to reach out to our committee, all members who came to this knowing that this is a gigantic project, and they did it with everyone's interest in mind to try to do the right thing. And this is to be continued going forward. This is one presentation, one time. And our goal, as I said before, is to make some kind of even a more formal presentation at the town meeting, with hopefully even a couple of workshops before that time as well. Give people all the opportunity they want to speak up. Okay? Okay, next. We're moving on to solar HCA settlement agreement. Mr. McGinnis.
Yes, we have a settlement agreement with Solar Therapeutics for revenue sharing. So that is in your packet for the board to ratify.
So should we state some of the issues in this agreement?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a modification of the original host community agreement that had some factors in there about what was required of the licensee to provide to the town. We've updated that due to economic conditions. It's included in your packet.
Mostly due to impending state regulations, which are going to be looking at all HCA's.
Correct.
And quite possibly saying that a lot of the HCA's that are currently under effect are no longer valid, right, because they require payments to the town, and now the towns have to be a little bit more, I don't want to say creative, but a little more thoughtful in what the impact costs are to the. They don't have their act together, and they're at the mercy of the the cannabis lobbies. So,
But there will be some monies that will be coming to the town.
Correct.
yes.
But not the money that initially we
Correct. Not the
were
big,
told.
the big bang that
We
we
thought it
we were
would be
gonna
a windfall.
Right, right.
Yeah.
It will not be a windfall.
Not
It
at
will
all.
not be a loss, but it will not be a windfall.
And
But we
to-
really did think when we signed these agreements, because the state had proposed this, that
Right.
we would be able to fund things within our community.
Unfortunately,
You know, a rec center or something,
exactly.
you know.
Times have changed.
And the bottom line is, we are committed from the state to have 3 operations. We have 1 that's up and running, 2 that are still under construction.
yeah.
Um,
Well, there's one.
But in the end,
One under construction.
1 under construction and 1 is holding a license.
Right.
And that's it.
And there's the other one on Route 6 that they're,
That's the one that's under construction.
right, right. And that-
But it's frustrating to me that, that I signed a deal with the devil. That's how I felt when we signed it. But I thought, well, if it's coming anyway, we'll get some money for the town. And now we are not going to get nearly the money that we had been told.
And neither are they.
Well, that's, yeah, it's a two-way street. You know, they're floundering also. So, and it's, it is what is, sign of the times. So I'd like to make a motion that we sign the Solar HCA new agreement.
So you need to.
Excuse me.
Two separate votes? Yes. Yeah. The first vote is, Mr. Mickelson is on the agreement itself?
The
Oh,
settlement.
that's the
agreement.
settlement, yes.
Okay. We have a second on that?
Second down.
Any comments or questions on this agreement, on this motion? We're ready to vote.
Just that solar is the name of the business. This is not solar energy.
No.
Right.
The solar is the name of the cannabis
Are we
business.
ready to vote? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, I hear none. 4-0, unanimous.
Now you need a motion to sign a new host community agreement with Solar. And this is an updated agreement in light of the settlement agreement.
Motion to sign the new agreement with Solar HCA.
The new HCA agreement with Solar.
Agreement, yep.
Right. Well said. Have a second on that? Second by Mr. McDonald.
No,
Any-
not me.
Oh, I thought you raised your hand.
No, I didn't. I'm pointing to Heidi.
Do I have a second on that?
Tears in your eyes, Mr. McDonald?
Begrudgingly, because I wish that we could get the sums of money that we originally promised.
Is that a second in the motion?
It'll be a
however?
begrudging yes. If we had a 5th active member of this board, I would probably vote differently.
Okay,
But
understand.
Well, all HCA's basically have gone in a puff of smoke, so.
Any comment or questions on this motion? Ready to vote?
Vote.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Opposed.
3-1, passes. Thank you. Next, Town Administrator update.
Yes, just a few updates. Gary Carrero and I have been working on the budget and capital budgets for this year's annual town meeting. We're also working on preparing the warrant articles. I hope to have a list for you within the next meeting or two, and then to discuss those articles, so that's coming up. One item, the chief was in here, I should have had him promote. They have a new blue envelope program that they've implemented for drivers on the autism spectrum to use during a traffic stop. The envelopes are designed to hold a license, insurance, and registration and notify officers that the driver is on the spectrum and whether they are verbal or nonverbal. So the chief is implementing this program. I thought it was great. Opioid settlement fund notifications. We received notifications on Friday that the town will be receiving 2 new payments that are different. One is for settlement agreement with Allergan, Teva, Walmart, CVS, and Walgreens. We anticipate receiving a check of $216,124.66. And also there was another settlement agreement with Cencora Inc. and Cardinal Health. which the town is going to receive $17,071.94. So in the next few weeks, we should receive checks totaling $233,196.60. So it's great.
Nice.
And that's all I have.
Okay, members?
What about old business?
Sorry about that. Bliss Corner, no new updates. Lake Nokichoke, no new updates. Municipal broadband, none. And Mass DB Title V, none.
Can pay attention here, excuse me. We do have minutes to approve, February 5th and February 12th.
After reviewing the minutes, they look like they're fine with me, so I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of February 5th and February 12th.
Second. We have a second, okay. Any discussion on those minutes? Ready to vote? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, I hear none. Thank you. Now we go to Select Board updates. Members?
I didn't know if Stanley.
Brooks? Anybody down here? Mr. Mickelson?
No.
Mr.
No,
McDonald?
I'm done.
Mrs. Brooks?
I have one. In looking back at previous meetings, there had been a proposal to have a subcommittee, a small subcommittee, to look at the old police station.
Yes.
So has anyone gone in to evaluate it? Or where are we?
So we're Chris Vitale's here, and do you want to get up and give an update on it? So we're working on that.
Hey, Ms. Brooks?
Chris Vitale, Assistant Town Administrator. So if the board recalls, back in 2017, the town did have an appraisal done on the building. Rather than engaging a new realtor, we felt it would be more prudent to reach out to the individual who provided that service to the town previously. We reached out to him. We've been back and forth with correspondence. We're working out the details as to what's changed since 2017, if we're changing the parameters of that study. I was actually in contact with him earlier today. I'm hoping to get an update on that timetable, but I think before he does the work, he just wants to make sure, one, he's clear of the expectations, and two, just because there's a lot of different elements to this, he just wants to make sure that he gives us an accurate time frame for when he'll be completed with that work. So hopefully in the next week or so, I should have a definitive time frame for when we get that report in hand. But I did express that we were trying to have it done in time for our Springtown meeting.
Right. And do we know where the Historic Commission, I mean, I know they were here at a couple meetings ago asking to.
Yeah, so their committee, my understanding is they did meet and they did designate Sukaduchi to be their representative. So really, as soon as we have that updated report in hand, we did already say that we would schedule that meeting and follow up so that we could review that report together.
Is the Historic Commission still asking someone from their committee, or they were going to get someone to look at the building? Is that still happening?
So I haven't had any correspondence with them.
They've had some requests to have a representative of theirs look at the building, and the board voted, and I let Sue know, and I think she was coordinating with Tim Lancaster to get in. That was a few weeks ago. I'm not sure if they ever went in there. I could check with Tim.
Yeah, I just want to state it that the police department has used the building as recently as a month ago for training with area SWAT teams, and that the police department does use and has been using the building once a week over a course of 10 weeks for training of their officers. That happens. So there have been people in and out. I will say that Chief Levesque told me that they do not use the basement area, but they run training scenarios in the other floors of the building. So I know we were very concerned about people going in, but it is being used.
Are we convinced that the strategy of using the former vendor is the right way to go?
I believe so. I read that appraisal back from 2017. I thought it was pretty comprehensive and really captured what we as the town were looking for to try and get an appraisal value. So
it is critical that we get this in the Springtown meeting.
Right. So particularly in light of the timeline, we thought it was best to use the same
Great, okay.
agent that did the original
Especially
study.
familiar with it.
Yeah, and it is our hope that
Nothing's
just
changed.
because they've already done the review of the code,
Yeah, I'd say
you
that.
know,
Yeah.
they've looked at the property, the building, it's our hope that it's just a matter of looking at the property value itself and making that revision, that update.
Anything else, Mrs. Brooks? I have a couple of quick comments. I've had requests, and this is a heads up on some old business, no discussion necessary, but regarding the New Bedford Police Woodcock Road firing range and issues there, and we do plan to bring that forward to our next meeting, and I'm asking that any residents or neighbors in that area who want to come forward and talk to us about it, and then they come forward, they can reach out to the select board or reach me personally, because we want to go through that process and find out if there's any more we can do, because evidently it's getting worse, not better. So
No guns, please.
So if you have something to say about it, please reach out to us, because we do plan to have a discussion here at this meeting, hopefully the next or the following meeting. And secondly is the same kind of thing, addressing the thicker plastic shopping bags now being used by many retailers in town. Thank you, Chris. And what that issue is and what it means to our town and what we're throwing away. And a coordinator, thanks to Mr. McDonald's discussion I had with him regarding maybe even looking at the plastic bags we use in our recycling program. Maybe it's time to look at the total package and see if we can do something together about that as an issue. There are states in the country who are using that thick plastic bag, and they're now throwing away more plastic than they ever have in the past, because it's thicker and it doesn't disintegrate. And we are distributing millions of those in our town as well, and it's time to look at it. So it's a heads up. Anybody who wants to come forward, we're going to have a meeting on that coming forward. And I also got a question regarding, is it Vision who does the assessing of the homes that make home visits residential? Is that the name?
Yes.
Have we done enough to notify residents that they may be coming, or is there more we can do?
We have notified residents. We have information on the website. We can repost it and let them know again.
Whatever we can do to get the word out. This is the company knocking on the door to come in the house to do an assessment, and
Correct.
I assume that this person.
For tax reevaluation.
Yes.
Which is why they
Have
do
the
it.
idea,
We're required by state to do
I understand, and I think that whatever we can do to notify more people is going on.
I again will suggest that we send a memo to the school department and ask that it go out in the electronic backpack. That will get it to all the families, at least.
So we talked to Maggie to do another. I think we need, whatever we can do to let people know, because it is a very disconcerting situation when someone knocks on the door and says, "Here I am," and who are you? So, not great.
Where's your badge?
Well, evidently this person had an ID.
No,
but-
I'm kidding.
Yep. But it can be pretty frightening, so whatever we can do there. And we were invited to the CPC meeting on the 12th of March. And if we go, we have an issue of how many are going to go, and we have a quorum issue.
I cannot attend.
I cannot attend.
You cannot attend, okay?
What is it? What date?
12th of March.
12 Tuesday.
What time?
6,
What time?
6:30, I think.
6:30.
Wait a minute, is that that's a night
It's a
for our meeting?
Tuesday. No, it's a Tuesday. It's the
13th?
12th. The 12th. March 12th.
Sorry, my bad, I'm
Said
sorry.
6? 6?
6:30.
Okay, so if the two of us go, we'll be okay. Okay,
I've already sent back that I can't go.
okay. So it won't be an issue with too many of us going.
I have a business meeting.
Okay, no problem. So
I'll get it on my
I
account,
got it on mine as
so
well.
we'll see.
6:30, is that what the time was? Okay, so that's not an issue. Okay,
To your golf time.
that's it for me.
why
Thank you for listening. Okay.
Concerned.
Anything else from anybody?
One more thing
Yes.
is that there's a number of teams from Dartmouth High School going into tournaments, basketball teams. You'll need to look at the MIAA website to get a list, the times and dates. The boys play this Friday. I believe it's at Shepherd Hill. The girls' team has to wait until they're on a bye week. They have to wait for a game. The other sports, I have to say, hockey and track, I don't know. But also in the, for the music department, they have some upcoming shows coming out, the indoor percussion, the indoor guard. So check out the high school website and their calendar. There's a lot going on, a lot of Dartmouth pride out there.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Brooks. Anything else? Ms. McDonald?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.